Welcome to DIYEasyCrafts.com using the Mastersmith Pro Bevel Guide for edge down bevel grinds. Now most knife making jigs actually grind with the edge facing up, and most of them just do straight bevels. The beauty of this particular guide, the Mastersmith Pro, is that it is able to grind not only edge up but also edge down. And there's some really cool advantages to being able to do so. Now, first off, let's take a look at the actual guide. The Mastersmith Pro comes with a variety of different adjustments. You can move the entire jig to the left, to the right, up, down to position it accurately on the platen of your 2x72 grinder. It also has the ability to tilt. It can tilt forward and it can tilt back. It can also pivot left and right so that you can get it squared up to the platen. A very, very well built, very well thought out little gadget. You can also adjust for different thicknesses. This system, especially in the edge down use, uses a carrier system. And the carrier is basically a second blade or another piece of material that's going to glide along the back surface of that guide, and also will mimic the curvature of the blade so that it will glide on the bottom surface of that guide. And I'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. You can set the angle of this guide either with a digital angle meter or with an angle block, and I'll show you that later also. This is a quick look at one of the carriers. Now, a carrier can be made out of just any flat stock mild steel. You just have to grind it to the same shape or same curvature, bottom edge of whatever knife you're going to grind. Because edge down grinding, you want that bevel to follow the contour of the knife. Now, I use water jet cut blanks, so I don't have to grind a carrier for each one. I can just basically clamp two knife blanks together. One will act as the carrier for the second. So that carrier will provide the flat surface and also will mimic the curvature of the blade, so that that carrier blade combination will just slide right into the glide, and you'll be able to grind a very, very nice uniform bevel on both sides. Now, when you're clamping these together, I definitely recommend two clamps, just so that you don't get any movement at all between the carrier and the knife blank itself. Now, I'm just setting up my guide. I'm going to set the accurate angle, and I'm just going to use, I just cut this out of wood. This is the angle that I'm going to set my bevel at. I like to use this rather than the meter, just because it's a little faster and it allows me to very quickly obtain the exact same angle that I had done previous. I'm also going to use calipers to measure the distance from the left and right side of the Mastersmith Pro guide to the edge of the platen, and you want that to be exactly the same on both sides. One of the disadvantages of grinding bevel down is that you don't get the opportunity to see the bevel plunge cut, so you're kind of doing that blind. What I've done is I've clamped another stop onto my carrier blade combination. That's going to hit the side of the Mastersmith Pro guide, and that's going to set basically where that bevel plunge cut is going to be. So I'm going to slide the knife into position. I'm going to turn the black knob, which moves that whole carriage forward into the grinding surface. And then I'm going to slowly pull and push that blade combination along the curvature of the knife so that my bevel follows the curvature of that blade. One of the advantages of grinding edge down is that your belts will not wear out anywhere near as fast. You'll be able to go through quite a few knife blanks without wearing out a belt. This system uses a screw for force and creates a uniform pressure along the entire surface or entire width of the platen. It grinds very quickly. It removes a lot of material very fast. One of the things that I found out the hard way is that you have to leave yourself a little bit extra room, the thickness of the blank. You don't want to grind as close to the center line as maybe you did previously because of the increased pressure, I think, leaves deeper scratch marks from the same grit paper. So for example, I'm using an 80 grit paper, and in order to polish out all of those grind marks, it took me a lot more work and a lot more space to do so. So basically, all you're going to do is you're going to leave yourself a little extra thickness when you're doing this rough grinding, and then you're going to go back and re-polish these with a finer grit paper, and that'll get rid of all of those grind marks. What I did was I used an 80 to do all the rough grinds, and then I finished it off with a 120. Another view of how you insert the blade carrier combination, and it's really just pivoting and making sure that the bottom surface is constantly in contact with the bottom of that guide. And because you can't see the center line while you're grinding, every time you take the combination blank carrier out, you definitely want to take a look at your scribed center line and how close that bevel is to it. Another look at how this guide supports the blade, not only from the front but also from the back, so you don't get any wiggle or wobble. And it really just creates beautiful bevels. Now what I've done here is I've just flipped the blade over and I've clamped it onto the same second blank on the other side. I'm going to make sure that my stop is set up so that the left side of the belt is now going to be equal to where the plunge cut's going to be. And this is a little tricky. You do have to spend a little time getting that set up, that measurement accurate, so that your plunge cut ends up in the same spot on both sides. One little trick that I found is if you are off a little bit, you can just use the idler control on the belt sander to move the belt slightly to the left in order to make up any slight difference in location. And after just a few minutes, you can take a look, and already the perfect bevel is already starting to be formed. And just for comparison, all of the bevels I've done previous, I don't do any freehand grinding. I'm just not very good at it. But the other bevel jig that I had made previous, I could do straight bevels. So this is the first time I've done these curved bevels, and they're so far superior to anything that I've done in the past. There's just no way I could have done that quality of a bevel, either freehand or with basically any other jig. It's a perfect setup if you're going to do especially a quantity of blades that are all the same thickness, because you could set this guide up to your 2x72 and you could run through a dozen or 2 dozen or 3 dozen blanks and do all of the rough grinding very, very quickly. This guide was made by Belknap Custom Knives. You can find out additional information on it from www.belknapcustomknives.com, and I'll put a link at the end of this video. It really is just a very, very easy way of creating beautiful bevels, whether you're going to grind in the edge down position or in the edge up position. I did cover the edge up straight grinds on a previous video. This blade is actually a slightly larger blade, the one that I'm grinding right now. This is a Bowie style knife. And I just wanted to show you visually that the guide works equally as well for small blades and for medium or larger blades. Again, a beautiful bevel. These are some images of the finished bevels on a couple of different style knives. The bevel plunge cut. Now, please check us out on the web at DIYEasyCrafts.com. Be sure to check out our other how-to videos, our other how-to knife making videos. And by all means, check out Belknap Custom Knives at belknapcustomknives.com. Thank you very much. Please give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe to this YouTube channel.